can last a lifetime, like a lifetime basketball hoop system. Some gifts can break your heart. Others break records, like an Easton Mako torque bat, and strengthen the heart, like a Fitbit Charge HR. Get the athletes in your life a gift that matters from Dick's Sporting Goods. Hurry into Dick's and save 25% on select Nike apparel and footwear. Every holiday season starts at Dick's.
From me to you.
The Big 12 and SEC collide at the All-State Sugar Bowl. Number 16, Oklahoma State. Number 12, Ole Miss. Coverage begins New Year's Day at 8:30 Eastern on ESPN and on ESPN Radio.
The topics are hot. The discussion is heated. The First Take podcast starts now.
Hey, Merry Christmas Eve. Coming up on the First Take Pod, what does Tom Brady need to do, if anything, against the Jets to win MVP? Plus, the Redskins can clinch the NFC East on Saturday with a win, but will they? And what will happen in the rematch of the finals between the Cavs and the Warriors on Christmas Day? The First Take Pod starts right now. Merry Christmas Eve. We appreciate you spending part of your holiday with us. Skip Bayless and Molly Karam here in Bristol. Stephen A. joins us from Philly. Gentlemen, we have no show tomorrow, so I will say Merry Christmas.
Same to you, Molly.
Both of you today.
Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas. How you doing?
I'm good. I'm wondering if you guys are in the holiday spirit.
Oh, yes. I will be in a better holiday spirit once I get to stop shopping. I can tell you that.
This is the last nice thing I'm going to say to you on this show. I love you, man, and Merry Christmas.
Love you too, bro. Merry Christmas, my man. Merry Christmas. Love you too, Molly.
Yes.
Merry Christmas. You're doing a wonderful job. You've had a sensational year.
All right.
Likewise.
She's already on your side.
Likewise.
We know. You don't need to go any
Thank you,
farther
guys. See, now the Grinches have come back. Yeah, I get it. All right, let's get into it. It appears the MVP race is locked up by one Cam Newton. According to USA Today Sports' Tom Pelissero, who wrote an article that the race is pretty much over. So Pelissero took an informal poll where 5 of 6 general managers voted for Cam. Just one GM voted for Tom Brady. However, could Brady possibly earn the top spot again Sunday at the Jets, where there's a lot on the line? New England will clinch the #1 seed in the AFC with a win. So, Skip, what does Brady need to do to win the MVP this Sunday?
You know, here's the better question to me. Can he do enough to win the MVP? And there are two views of this. There's my view, and then what I believe is the view of most voters on this question. In my view, just my view only, I definitely believe, as I told you Monday, Tom Brady has a great opportunity to close the deal for MVP on Sunday against his arch rival on the road against Revis and Cromartie, one of the best secondaries in the National Football League, the 5th-rated defense in the National Football League, in a high-stakes game. And I believe Tom Brady will do enough to win MVP on Sunday because I believe he will be the biggest reason that the Patriots beat the Jets 24-20. Now back to the other half of that question. I think it's over. I agree with the 5 GMs that Tom Pelissero quoted in his USA Today piece. I just think most of the world, in most voters' minds, this is a done deal. It is over. Cam Newton has already won the MVP no matter what happens in his game at Atlanta and his game against Tampa Bay. Already over. Even if they lose those 2 games, Cam Newton will win the MVP. Why? Underlying reason? Brady hate, Deflategate. We all know that Tom Brady was, in my view, prematurely convicted in the court of public opinion as a cheater in Deflategate, who then lied about it. And even though Tom Brady beat the NFL in court in an NFL home game in Manhattan, didn't change a lot of minds about Tom Brady. And I think a lot of those minds that got closed are voters' minds. And we already know, Stephen A. Smith, that there was enough resentment of Tom Brady before Deflategate. Obviously, the supermodel wife, the golden boy, blah, 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 blah. We know all that. But Deflategate did him in. There's no way he's going to win MVP, even with a great performance at the Jets, beating the Jets on Sunday. Will he win MVP? It's Cam's. It's over. It's done. Congratulations, Cam Newton.
Well, first of all, I disagree with you from this respect. Number one, I don't think it's a foregone conclusion. I think a lot of people do believe that it should be Cam, that there are others that obviously are of the mindset that I'm in. If he runs the table and he's undefeated, there's no doubt. But I look at it from, dare I say, a more cynical perspective than you, Skip. I think that if Cam Newton loses one game of these last two, he could potentially lose the MVP. They'll give it to him. If they run the table, they're 16-0. They're undefeated throughout the regular season. But if he loses one of these two games and Brady plays lights out these final two games, and let's say they end up with identical 14-2 records, or Cam is 15-1 and Brady is 14-2, I still think there's a chance that Brady could win. Now, Cam is my MVP. Over the last 6 games, Skip, he has 19 touchdowns and 1 interception. 1 interception in the last 6 games. His QBR at this moment in time is at about 67. I think that's respectable. He's obviously a better runner and far more athletic than Tom Brady, even though Tom Brady has better numbers yardage-wise, completions, and what have you. But Tom Brady went through a 4-game stretch where he struggled, particularly in the back-to-backs against Denver and against Philly. Even though he almost pulled out the victory against Denver, he was struggling a little bit that game. Just look at the numbers. And so when I look at it from that perspective, you had a 2-game losing streak. Obviously, you struggled a little bit in terms of your completion percentage. You didn't seem to be yourself for like a 4-game period of time, whereas Cam Newton, as the season progressed, appeared to elevate even more. And as the weeks went by, he seemed to get better and better. That's not to say that there weren't some doldrums along the way. I thought the game against Dallas, the defense won that game as opposed to Cam Newton. But I just look at it from this perspective of his body of work coming into the season, losing Kelvin Benjamin, having a guy in Ted Ginn who can be spectacular or be spectacularly bad with dropping passes 1 minute to the next. You got Greg Olsen and not even much else to point to. Funches can play, but he's still developing. Jonathan Stewart can play, but he was used to sharing that backfield with D'Angelo Williams, and then he had a load that he had to carry. So I look at all of these things along with what was projected coming into this season. Coming into this season, fresh off a 7-8-1 year, it was projected that the Carolina Panthers would be lucky to win 8 to 9 games because Kelvin Benjamin, Cam Newton's primary weapon, had ended up going down, and lo and behold, that's been debunked. So I look at all of those different things, and I say to myself, excuse me, when you talk about MVP caliber performances, what people bring to the table, particularly as the season progresses, in some tacit kind of way, Skip, you can look at it similar to college football. North Carolina was in the picture until they lost that ACC championship game to Clemson. Why was that? Because even though they had already had one loss on their docket, it was earlier in the season. First game of the season in South Carolina. Alabama came on strong. They had one loss when they lost to Ole Miss, but as the season progresses, they elevated their level of play. Cam Newton, same thing. As the season has progressed, he has elevated his level of play. That's not to ignore or just shove aside the fact that Gronk went down, Edelman went down, Amendola went down, Deion Lewis is out, LeGarrette Blount is not out
the
for the
offensive
season.
line,
all of those
out,
things,
out.
the offensive line, out.
Okay.
All of those things are obviously important. But you got Belichick and you have Brady, and the combination of those two gives you a level of continuity and consistency that you can lean on and rely upon from a systemic perspective. And when you look at it from that standpoint, I just think that Cam Newton coming out of nowhere and elevating his play in big moments against Seattle, against New Orleans, last week against the Giants, we have seen him in pressure situations time and time again, and he has exceeded expectation. I think all of those things combined with them running the table gives him the league MVP, so long as he doesn't wet the bed and stink up the joint these last 2 games. But I don't believe he can stink up the last 2 games, Skip, and they'll give it to him anyway. That's why I disagree with your assertion that it's a foregone conclusion. They're assuming that Cam is going to be Cam, Brady's going to be Brady, and we'll give it to Cam. Not that Cam can stink up the joint against Atlanta and then against Tampa, but Brady plays lights out against the Jets and in the season finale, and Brady still loses. I don't see that happening. I think if Cam is Cam, and Brady is Brady, it goes to Cam. But Cam has to continue to perform over these last 2 games for it to happen.
Just for the record, I believe Cam will continue to perform at a high level against those lowly Falcons on Sunday, even in Atlanta, which is Cam's hometown. Okay, so we agree on that.
That's right.
Okay, can I go back to the most stunning stat I've heard in a long time to help make the Brady case? Just bear with me on this because it pertains to the last time the Jets and the Patriots played, which was in Week 7 in Foxborough. The Patriots won that game 30-23. In that game, Tom Brady dropped back to pass on 91% of the Patriot snaps. Now think about that. 91% of the time, they called a pass play for Tom Brady. And for the game, James White had 2 carries for 4 yards, LeGarrette Blount 3 carries for -3 yards, and Tom Brady had 4 carries for a team-leading 15 yards and a touchdown, okay? That's how bad the run game was. 91% of the time he threw, and over the last 10 years, that was the #1 highest percentage any team's quarterback has dropped back to pass. Over those 10 years, bear with me on this, the Patriots have had 4 times that they've gone over 80% of the snaps that they let Brady drop back to pass. They won all 4 games. They're 4-0 in those 4 games over the last 10 years, 80% plus dropbacks. The league over that time, in its 80+% dropbacks, is 4 and 111. So 115 times the rest of the league tried 80% dropbacks and lost 111 of 115 times. What does that tell you about Tom Brady? He can be the running game. You want the ball in Tom Brady's hands every play. Forget about the run game. Occasionally they rely on it, but mostly they don't. And now if it's Joey Isafina as the primary running back on Sunday versus the vaunted Jets rush defense, which going into the Dallas game was #1 in the league, it's just Brady. It's all Brady. They're reliant. The whole offense is in his hands every play. And you can come back at me. I don't want to take anything away from Cam here because he's had a sensational breakout year. But he leads quarterbacks in rush yards. Jonathan Stewart's had a really good year as a running back for them. So they have a run game thanks in large part to Cam. He's a big part of that. Brady has none. Brady can't really run. That was just an aberration that he got, 15 yards on 4 carries. So my point to you is Brady's doing it all from the pocket with the ball in his hands, and he just keeps on keeping on. He keeps doing it. And while Cam was having 6 pretty mediocre games early on, Brady was playing at the highest level I've ever seen any quarterback play at coming out of Deflategate. So my point to you is I don't think you can discount the body of work for the whole year. I agree Cam's just been crazy hot for the last 5 games. But in the end, watch what will happen Sunday. I don't think they'll be able to run the ball at all against the Jets. So Brady will probably throw it about 90% of the time, and I think he'll win the game throwing it 90% of the time.
Well, a couple of things that need to be pointed out, Skip. Number one, there's a lot of plays that are made after the catch on behalf of Brady. Dips and dunks do occur with him. We all know he can fling that football. He's got an arm, he's got accuracy, and nobody's taken away from the greatness of Tom Brady. But there's a lot of dipping and dunking that he exercises and the New England Patriots employ that work to his advantage. That's point number one. Point number two, what you just said about Cam Newton, about how spectacular he's been as the season has waned. That also means we're not disrespecting Brady. We're just lauding and praising Cam Newton because he deserves it. Point number three. There's a 4-game stretch. We're talking about Tom Brady here. It's a 4-game stretch, Skip Bayless. I got the numbers right in front of me. He completed 61.9% of his passes against the New York Giants. Against Buffalo, it was 51.2%. Against Denver, it was 54.7%. Against Philadelphia, when they lost that game, it was 51.7%. So I'm saying that when you look at him, there was a 4-game gap in there. We all understand, primarily due to injuries. We also understand that obviously Brady's going to throw the football more. He's going to be accurate on more occasions. But at the same time, the overall impact that he has one could argue Cam Newton has that impact because Cam Newton facilitates the running game for Jonathan Stewart. Cam Newton is the reason why you got a passing game with Olsen and Ted Ginn Jr. as your wide receivers. Cam Newton's the reality is the fact that you have he's the cause for your running game because you not only have to concern yourself with Jonathan Stewart, you have to concern yourself with him. And as a result, it also opens the passing game because of Cam Newton's athletic ability and his ability to run the football. You've got to have spies on him. You can't just sit there and suffocate the line of scrimmage, nor can you drop back in coverage and just have a 3-man rush or a 4-man rush because of the things this brother can do. You look at all of those things that Cam Newton brings to the table. Again, it's a toss-up. I totally understand where you're coming from. Nobody's trying to take anything away from Tom Brady. But at the end of the day, what it comes down to, Skip, is something that we haven't recognized. We want to give all due respect and props to Ron Rivera, who has done a sensational coaching job with the Carolina Panthers and deserves our respect. We were critical of him in the past. No reason to be critical of him now. We have to praise this man and the job that he's doing. Yep. But in the end, Skip, Bill Belichick, Ron Rivera never gets mentioned in the same sentence as Bill Belichick. Bill Belichick is considered a genius throughout football circles. Deflategate, Spygate, and all of this other stuff notwithstanding, Bill Belichick is considered the modern-day genius. This man is on another level as a coach. That is somebody that Tom Brady has relied upon, and he has relied upon Tom Brady all of these years. Ron Rivera, we weren't talking about him in that same ilk. This is Cam Newton team. This is what this brother has been doing. And his ability to throw the football, to run the football, to be athletic, to be the leader that he is, all of those things included. You can't take away a year of unblemished perfection from this young man if indeed he runs the table.
Okay. Point of order, we don't have time to debate this, but I'm going to say it again. Tom Brady made Bill Belichick. And I don't want to go into that. That's just my opinion of your overview of this situation. Now, number two, you realize the dinks and dunks you referred to early on with Brady? He has no deep threat. Brandon LaFell is his deep threat, or as I often call him, LaDrop, because he drops as many balls to my eyes as Ted Ginn Jr. drops and can't get behind anybody to boot. So what do you expect him to do?
And?
Okay, well, so
I'm not blaming him, Skip. I'm not blaming him. I'm just saying that's the reality.
Okay. So Brady's doing what he has to do with what he has to work with. Now he has about a 50% Gronk. No Edelman, no Amendola, patchwork offensive line, no primary back he can really trust. James White's starting to come on a little bit as a third down kind of back. But what? Against the Jets, at the Jets? And I'm saying they're going to win the game. And if they win that game, he deserves to be the MVP. Now, what do you think about the game?
I disagree with that, and I think that the Jets are going to beat them. If you recall, earlier this year, I said that the New England Patriots could potentially lose 2 games. Mm-hmm. I said they'd probably go 14-2. You got the Giants game, the Denver Broncos game, and the New York Jets game. And I said, look, I definitely see them losing one of those games, and I picked Denver to win. I said, number 2, the Giants will give them a run for their money, but they'll lose one of those games at MetLife Stadium in all probability. 15-1 is possible. 14-2 is likely. I said from day one, the game on December 27th at MetLife Stadium in East Rutherford, New Jersey, is a game that we need to watch out for because the Jets are going to need that game in order to make some noise and have a shot at the playoffs. I said that months ago. I'm going to stand by that. I'm not going to jump ship. I believe this particular game is a game the New York Jets are going to win. I think they're going to pull this game. I think they're going to pull this out. So I'm going to pick the Jets to win this game 30-28.
Wow, kind of a shootout, actually. Well, if you're right about that, then your conclusion should be Cam will cinch the MVP on Sunday. Right?
Okay.
Well, I mean, that's what you're saying. If Cam's going to beat Atlanta. Right?
Yeah, I think that Atlanta's game is going to be tougher than we realize. It's because they got shellacked so badly 2 weeks ago on the road. I think they'll come to play this Sunday. I still think they'll lose, but I don't think it'll be easy for the Carolina Panthers to win this game.
Before we move on real quick, one thing I want to mention, I do think Cam has locked it up, but if the race isn't over, these two games are really tough to put a lot on because once these teams lock up home field, both can with a win, Week 17 doesn't really count. So basically the MVP race is decided this Sunday after Week 16. All right.
I've been saying that for a couple of days. It's going to come down to the last two games.
Yep.
Last one game.
Week 16. The NFC East is always up for grabs and seems to always come down to Week 16 or 17. There's been a new division winner each year for over a decade. However, the Washington Redskins have an opportunity to take the crown for the first time since 2012, Saturday in Philly. The Eagles and Giants are also still alive, barely. Stephen A., can Washington clinch the NFC East? Will they, clinch the NFC East this Sunday?
I believe they will. I think that it'll be a tough game. They'll obviously be on the road. I'm allergic to picking the Washington Redskins on the road, unless they're playing Jay Cutler, of course, and they handle their business that game. But I think they're just allergic to prosperity. I think things have changed in the nation's capital just a touch. I don't think Kirk Cousins should be feeling himself too much. I definitely don't believe Jay Gruden should be feeling himself a bit too much. But I will concede that going up against the Philadelphia Eagles, they have a nugget in their bag, Skip, that I think that they're going to pull out to work to their advantage. And that would be the one and only Deshaun Jackson. Back in Philadelphia, going up against his old team, against a coach who not only didn't want him, but had people talking bad about him once they pushed him out the door. I think Deshaun Jackson's going to be up for this game. I think he's going to be hyped for this game. And I think his presence is going to be felt emphatically, I might add. I can see him having a big day, plus 100 yards, a big touchdown, no question. But I also see him facilitating things for Pierre Garçon and others because I think he's going to open the field for the Washington Redskins in their passing game because they're going to have to be concerned about him with the deep threat. He can fly. He can make things happen. He can get behind defenders all day long, and he can make some noise in special teams as well when he's not stupidly running backwards, that is. And I love this, Sean, but that was just a stupid play that he did on that Monday night game against the Dallas Cowboys. In the end, I expect him to have a big-time game. I expect this to be a good game, but for the Redskins to win, I'm going to pick the Redskins to win this game 33-27.
Okay.
And this game is Saturday. Let me correct
Saturday's fine. Saturday night.
I'm sorry.
Yep.
I'm sorry.
No,
Saturday.
I said it, yep.
Saturday night.
And by the way, just point of order, I don't know why, but Deshaun didn't practice. I guess it was yesterday with some sort of knee issue, but I fully expect him to play, and you're probably right. He will probably make some plays.
He always finds a reason to take a day off during the week.
Okay.
Yeah, he'll be fine.
Before I answer the question, I want to point out that this Saturday night is the anniversary of maybe my greatest moment in the history of this show, because a year ago on this coming Saturday night, the Eagles played at the Redskins, and my man RG3 had a very nice game, threw for 220, and the Redskins won that game 27-24, knocking off Mark Sanchez and the Philadelphia Eagles and knocking them out of the race in the NFC East, which was then won by my Dallas Cowboys, which forced you on the following Monday to wear the Romo hat, or the Cowboys hat, in the Romo jersey. Thank you very much. I just wanted to remind you of that great moment.
I thought that was on my birthday. Well,
that's cinched.
I lost the bet when Dallas lost to Seattle, and that's when I wore the Cowboys
I think
cap
you had to wear
and the
it
Romo
again
jersey.
because that was our bet that if the Cowboys won the East, you were going to do something. You had to wear the jersey.
I love
That's my
reminiscing.
I love how
it's so sweet.
It's a warm memory.
Holidays. Just
I
reminiscing.
love how you found an excuse to bring up the
He
most
did.
irrelevant
This is it.
franchise
He
in the
did.
NFL,
This is
the
the
Dallas Cowboys.
anniversary.
Congrats.
Well, it is. It's the flip of the
Happy
game.
anniversary, Skip.
Okay. Now back to my prediction on this game. I am extremely conflicted here because I don't love Chip Kelly, and I don't really love Jay Gruden. I don't love Chip Kelly because of the way he handled Deshaun Jackson, LaShawn McCoy, and how he didn't handle Riley Cooper. And you know I don't love Jay Gruden for the way he has handled or not handled Robert Griffin III. So I'm torn here because I don't want either one of them to win because they'll be validated in ways I don't want to see. So I'm really torn. But in the end, I got to go with the home team here just because they are at home and Kirk Cousins is on the road. You realize 9 of his 11 interceptions have come on the road. And you referred to the Jay Cutler game. Robbie Gould missed a field goal at the buzzer that would have sent it to overtime. So the Redskins were lucky to get out of that game alive on the road, and that's their one road win so far. Now, the Eagles have been horrendous at home with an NFL-leading 19 turnovers at home. I don't think that'll happen this time because it is a grudge match, a division game. I expect Sam Badford to be more Sam Goodford this time. I expect Philly to be able to run the ball against Washington. And by the way, when Philly gets 100 yards, they're 6-2. When they don't get 100 yards, they're 0-6. Okay, so I think they'll get 100 yards. I won't be surprised if DeMarco has some yards. And the weird stat of the year so far to me is that DeMarco on third down is 15 for 15 converting third downs when they hand him the football. So I'm just going to guess he'll bang away on some key third downs. I'm going to go 30-28 home team and a little bit of a shootout back and forth. I'm not saying Kirk Cousins will play poorly. I just think he won't make the kind of plays and have the kind of momentum they have at home when he can yell at the media. You like that? I don't think he's going to love this one. That's my pick.
Well, we'll see. I just listen. The Redskins have the 28th ranked rushing attack. You know, they don't defend against the running game that well. And if you're Chip Kelly, you know, you should run the football all day. I just don't see him being that guy. Everybody raves about how Chip Kelly loves to run the football. There's no doubt about that. And that's what they say. Skip, I understand that the numbers may be there to some degree, but I see a coach that aches to pass the football. I see a coach that aches for the Brent Sellecks and the Zach Ertz and the Matthews of the world and the Aguilars of the world to really get involved. And I can see him doing something like that and not running the football nearly as much as he should. That's just what I see. I just think this is a game the Redskins understand what's on the line. They've got a shot to get the division title, to clinch a playoff berth, and I think that's what they're going to do. I think it's going to be poetic justice, considering all the noise. Think about this, Skip, from this perspective. All the noise that was started at the beginning of this season before a game was played about Chip Kelly being in control, wanting things his way, having the mentality that he had, coming across as dismissive and aloof, etc. All these questions about Chip Kelly before a single game was played. And now here we are near the tail end of it. We go all through this season, and with the playoffs on the line it's the Washington Redskins and Deshaun Jackson that have an opportunity to eliminate it. I think it's poetic justice. I think it's karma. And I think ultimately that is what is going to go down. And I believe regardless of what Fletcher Cox says, and he's entitled to say it because he's big time, and I respect that brother, I just believe that this particular game belongs to the Redskins because I believe this season belongs to anyone but the Philadelphia Eagles because karma ultimately got in their way before a game was even played this year, and karma is what's going to do them in this Saturday night.
Okay, so you're picking with your heart, I think you're admitting, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Sure.
Fair enough. And by the way, Fletcher Cox guaranteed that the Eagles would win this game, but then he turned to the reporters and said, "What do you want me to say? We're going to lose?" Yeah. So it's not that big a deal to me. Yeah.
It's not. So it's a non-guarantee guarantee.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Split decision here. Stephen A. Rowland with the nation's capital, Skip with the home team. So we'll see what's going to be trending. Fly, Eagles, fly, or hail to the Redskins.
Or buy, Eagles, buy.
Last time we saw Fly, Eagles, fly, Tebow was the quarterback.
Buy, Eagles, buy. I like that, Skip.
Yeah, that was good. That was quick, too.
Eagles, buy.
Meanwhile, the one-game suspension of Odell Beckham Jr. was upheld by the NFL, and he will not play in Sunday night's game in Minnesota. Beckham apologizing for his actions, saying this in a prepared statement. "I owe some people an apology. I wasn't raised to act like I did the other day. I am not here to make excuses for my conduct. This isn't about anything that was said or done to me. This is about my behavior, and I am responsible for my behavior. People expect better from me. I expect better from myself." Stephen A., you buying ODB's apology?
Well, yeah. I mean, listen. First of all, let me say this, and I feel the need to say this because this is not about Odell Beckham Jr., what I'm about to say. This is about all of these professional athletes. What happened to just looking into a camera and just speaking your piece? I mean, to me, that's clearly a statement written by the PR department, or whether it's his PR or the team's PR, or I don't know. But that just rubs me the wrong way. It ain't that damn hard. It really isn't, to just look into the camera and be like, look, man, I messed up. That's not who I am. That's not how I was raised. I was selfish that day. I got caught up. My bad. I mean, it's just that simple. And not only that, for it to come days later, it's like, really? Was that all necessary? I mean, it was clear that he was wrong. It was clear that he was excessive, but it was also clear that he wasn't the only one at fault here, which is why Josh Norman got fined. And so we are debating and going back and forth. I'm not talking about just us, this show, every network going back and forth about the character or character flaws of Odell Beckham Jr. Ain't nothing wrong with this brother. He's big time. He can ball. He got caught up because Josh Norman and the Panthers got into his head. He reacted wrongly. Okay. He should not have done what he did. And as a result, because of it, he's penalized. And in some respects, some would say that's partially why the Giants may have lost this game. It happens. It's no big deal. They make it a big deal because the first order of business is to live in denial, then hide, then come out and address the issue. But you got to do it through PR and all of this other stuff because you got to make sure it's worded just correctly or whatever. I mean, I believe that Odell Beckham Jr. made a mistake because he let Josh Norman and the Panthers get in his head. I believe that was a mistake. I believe that he was so preoccupied with all of that stuff that he forgot about his teammates. It was a mistake. It wasn't a big deal. But it's situations like this that make it big because think about this, Skip. If Odell Beckham Jr. had sat at his locker after the game and literally said, man, I messed up. I got distracted. They ticked me off. Got inside my head. Shouldn't have let it happen. My bad, y'all. I messed up. This is on me. I'm sorry. That would have been it. There would have been nothing to talk about. Now he might have gotten suspended, but that would have been it. We would have talked about it Monday morning. Outside of that, we wouldn't have even addressed it. But it's been a week-long saga, all because the default position appears to be for the modern-day athlete to hide. And it's actually, it's marvelous when you think about it because Skip, I consider it tantamount to our legal system. You sit up there and let's say, for example, a cop gives you a speeding ticket. Well, you know what? The court's going to get their money. Or you got to hire a lawyer to defend yourself so you don't have to pay, but the lawyer going to get their money, but somebody going to get paid, and either way, it's going to cost you. But It's almost like people find ways to keep themselves relevant. If you messed up, own up. You don't need representatives. You don't need the Players Association. You don't need Giants or your own personal PR. You don't need all of this stuff. All you need to do is man up and be like, I messed up. My bad, my fault. Won't happen again. I got distracted today. And unfortunately, this is much ado about nothing because he's not a bad guy. He's a spectacular young player. He just made a mistake. But he is the one that contributed to making it bigger than what it is because he's been hiding all week. And now you issue a statement. I believe the statement is accurate. But I also believe he comes across like he's hiding because any of us can get somebody to write a statement for us. Anybody.
Yep.
How come you can't just look in the camera and be like, my bad, it won't happen again? I don't understand it. I really don't.
I love everything you just said. I hadn't thought of it exactly that way, but I applaud you for what you just said. You're right. When I read these statements from Odell, they had the faint ring or aroma of publicist or lawyer or maybe combination of both. Now, is Odell capable of, yes, he is very capable of writing these statements. And is there some sincerity between the lines? I'm sure there's some. But there's also some desperation going on here because he and his team are now trying to salvage his reputation and, more important, his marketability, which they have positioned him beautifully, perfectly, as almost a marketing icon now, and all of a sudden that took a huge hit, Mr. Cover of Madden. And I got to tell you, I'm going to say this again. I'm seeing two Odells operating here. There's a little Jekyll and Hyde going on, or as in Sunday's game, a little hide your eyes when he goes completely out of control, because he's gone out of control before. End of last year, he had a couple of personal fouls where he just went over the edge. And I'm going to repeat what our man Ryan Clark, who was a mentor to this young man before we even knew who Odell Beckham Jr. was in his first year at LSU. Ryan took him under wing. And remember, Ryan played for LSU, bleeds purple and gold. And Ryan said that last year when he played in his final NFL season for the Redskins, that Odell Beckham Jr. was the first ex-LSU player, alum, like somebody he's connected to, that he wanted to fight on the field because Odell talks so much junk, just constantly spewing out junk on the field. Just it's just the typical trash talk, but he just can't stop talking, according to Ryan Clark, who loves this kid. So he has a reputation on the field that I think a lot of fans were not aware of. So we had the quote a couple days ago from Michael Irvin, another one of his new mentors. He's got Ray Lewis, he's got Dion, he's got
Shaq has his back.
Shaq's got his back. Everybody's got his back.
Yep.
And this is all smart plays on the part of the Beckham team, because you want all those guys behind you.
Yep.
But Michael Irvin said, I don't think I've ever really seen the animosity towards a receiver ever in this league right now as what's going towards this young kid. Well, Michael, do you know he's bringing at least some of it on himself, talking that much, that the way he talked even as a rookie, that he incited Ryan Clark, an LSU ex, to want to fight him on the field? And Ryan was just dumbfounded by it when he told me this story off the air. He said, I couldn't help myself. I wanted to lay my hands on the kid because he's just out of control. Okay? So let's factor that in here, that finally the kid who's played on the edge, and maybe this fuels him. We don't doubt his greatness now, but he plays on the edge and sometimes a little over the edge. Skin can be a little too thin. Do I think the brandishing of the bat by the practice squad player and street clothes on the sideline before the game sent him over the edge? I find that hard to believe, but that's what Brad Wing, another ex-LSU kid who's the punter for the Giants, that's what he said sent him over the edge. I don't know about the insults. I don't know about the slurs. I don't know what pushed the button, but some button got pushed that cannot ever again get pushed with this kid if he wants to be great. And he's got the potential to be great, but this is a hard lesson that he's learning here, and I hope he's taking it to heart. Because sometimes in front of the media, he says all the right things, then he doesn't do the right things on the field.
Well, Skip Bayless, let me throw a couple of things at you because I'm interested in your perspective with what I'm about to say. Number one, you're Odell Beckham Jr. There's a legitimate discussion about whether or not you're the best wide receiver in the entire National Football League.
Yeah.
Okay? Even though I'm thinking Antonio Brown at this moment. How the hell do you let a practice player get into your head?
I don't know.
He's a practice player.
I'm going to take you out
He's
with
a practice player.
He's not going to come on the field and take you out.
What you going to do? I mean, are you going to walk up to me in warm-ups? Because we ain't practicing. This is Sunday. We about to play, and you ain't even in uniform.
What is this
How
like?
are you a practice player?
Was it
and
like
you're gonna,
Tanya Harding or somebody?
And you're going to get
That's
into.
what it said.
He's feisty. 0
I mean,
to
come on
100
now.
real quick.
I mean, that don't make any
Stop
sense.
it.
That's point number one.
Okay.
That's point number one. Point number two, Skip Bayless, is this. Think about any of us. You, Molly, you, Skip, me, etc. Like, you met my boy Jeff.
Yeah.
You ain't meet members of
maybe 2
my
weeks
crew.
on this show.
That's
Yeah.
right. That's right. You
Merry
may
Christmas,
not have
Jeff.
met my crew from Hollis, Queens. You may not have met my boys from Winston-Salem State. But the fact of the matter is, I got a whole bunch of Jeffs in my life. You mess up. Yo, Steve. That ain't the way to go, bro. You messed up.
Yeah.
And guess what you got to do? You got to go in the air and be like, I messed up. Period. It's like Shaq, Michael Irvin, not Ryan Clark, because Ryan Clark broke it down. But all of these people coming to Odell Beckham Jr.'s defense.
They are.
For what? For what? I'm just saying, but for what? I mean, it's like, if he's either right or he's wrong. Mm-hmm. So when people are sitting there saying, well, you know what, he was out of control. Well, we're talking about Sunday. Nobody's talking about his life. We don't know his life.
Not about his life.
And if we're decent, respectable human beings, we don't care. As long as this brother ain't breaking the law, live your life. Nobody cares. We're talking about what happened Sunday. So everybody that's willing to jump to the defense of Odell Beckham Jr., well, the second you say that you don't validate, you don't condone his actions on Sunday, right there you need to shut the hell up. Why? Because you've admitted that you don't condone what you saw, which is what we're talking about. Everybody has tried to make this into something more than what it was. Your behavior on Sunday contributed to you blowing a game against the undefeated Carolina Panthers, and it might have eviscerated your playoff hopes for the New York Giants. That is what happened. That is all that we're talking about. Anything else has been exacerbated by Odell Beckham Jr. and his crew. And you got to remember, Michael Irvin, that's the playmaker. That's my man. We go back long ways, as he does with you. I mean, Shaquille O'Neal, come on now. You know that's my brother. Let's be clear. You know how tight. But the point is, everybody that's so willing to jump to the defense, all you're doing is highlighting how you're trying to explain away the inexplicable. You should not have done what you did Sunday. I don't care about what you do in your personal life. I don't care about all this other stuff. I care about the fact that you put yourself in a position where you embarrassed yourself, you came across as selfish, and you helped blow a game that Sunday.
Okay.
That's it.
All right, bottom line, quick thought. Has he cost his team the game at Minnesota on Sunday night?
Yes.
I say yes also.
I say yes, too.
Okay, we got
I
3
really
yeses.
hope it's an isolated incident. I really do. This I was really excited about, Skip. I know you don't want help in any of your debates, but the writer of one of my favorite shows, the hottest shows out there, Game of Thrones, has your back, and he watches our show, Stephen A. George R.R. Martin, saying on his blog, this morning, on First Take, Stephen A. Smith and Skip Bayless agreed that Beckham should be suspended for his actions yesterday. I can't disagree. But Bayless also said that the officiating crew should also be suspended, and boy, do I agree with that. You know, I got to second it because, of course, I wanted the officials to get involved,
Yes,
so he'd be playing Sunday. Skip, I don't know if you know how huge the show is. But
I do.
I'm pumped
Thanks
that,
to you.
that he's
I
a
know.
fan.
Thanks to you and Brian Bork of our staff. I know. And I'm honored by that, Mr. R.R. Martin, and we extend an open invitation to you to come sit with us on the show and talk Giants, Jets, or whatever pushes your button.
And bring Khaleesi.
You
guys will thank me for that.
Hold on with y'all pom-poms on. Hold on, okay? The Game of Thrones is a great, phenomenal show. He deserves to be applauded for that.
Yes.
And I definitely co-sign with Skip Bayless that he is welcomed on the show. But to Mr. George R.R. Martin, work on your next show. I don't give a damn that you agree with Skip Bayless. You understand what's wrong with you?
I
you
love
shouldn't
this
have
man.
agreed with him anyway.
Yeah.
Okay?
I do too, 'cause he's a Giants
come
fan.
on now.
Yeah.
I don't care. He's welcome to come on the show. Don't sit there and just tweet out about it. Come on into the big house, all right, and explain yourself more further than a 140-character tweet. And then maybe I'll take you seriously. This ain't Game of Thrones.
What you don't understand, this man is a genius, and he knows genius when he hears genius.
You all should be scared, actually.
No,
He's a genius when it comes to making television shows, all right? Not commenting on you.
Yes, he is.
Clearly.
Yeah.
Hopefully we see
Thank
him
you,
on
Mr.
here.
Martin.
Yes.
Merry
Winter is
Christmas.
coming, for those of you that get that reference.
You can feel a buzz in the air. You know something special is about to occur.
Clemson, Oklahoma, followed by Alabama, Michigan State. The College Football Playoff, 3 Eastern, New Year's Eve, on ESPN and ESPN Radio.
This is a mature team. This is not a team that looks ahead on the schedule, worry about, who's coming in here or where we're going. It's one game at a time, and at the end of the day, it's a regular season game. So, yeah, we haven't talked about it at all.
The memories will come back as soon as you walk into the building, but also understand it is one of 82, and I'm not going to put everything into this game. For us as a team, Friday will not be the end of our season like it was, in June. We play Saturday, and then we play Monday and Tuesday. So we want to play well, going against a great caliber team, the best team in our league right now. But it's not like the season ends if we lose or if we win or whatever case may be.
A little rematch action of the NBA Finals will headline a 5-game slate on Christmas Day. The Warriors have the highest win percentage, obviously, entering Christmas Day in NBA history. However, the players are downplaying this game publicly. Stephen A., what do you expect in this Cavs-Warriors matchup?
Well, I think it's wise for them to downplay it from the perspective that, okay, we'll be hyped about going up against one another, but I think both sides are being very realistic here. If you're the Golden State Warriors, the worst case scenario is that you're 27-2, still with the best record in all of the NBA, still in position to really make some noise for the regular season. It's a regular season game in December. Now, it is a rematch of the finals, and there are two storylines that they're trying to downplay because they know that they don't need to hype it up because they'll leave that to us to do so. But if you're the Golden State Warriors, people are considering your title fraudulent because Kevin Love and Kyrie Irving were not available to help LeBron James go against you, which a lot of people, including myself, believe is why you're standing here today as the reigning defending NBA champions. No disrespect to the Warriors because they look sensational right now, and I give them a lot of props. The flip side to it is that if you're the Cleveland Cavaliers, they are the team that knocked you off in the NBA Finals. You do firmly believe that had you had all your horses, you would have won. So the opportunity to send a message, particularly now that Kyrie Irving has just returned, should end up going a very, very long way because Kyrie Irving is going to be on the court, although in limited action. Kevin Love is back because his shoulder's no longer separated, and LeBron James is still LeBron James, and Iman Shumpert is going to be there as well because he's back from being injured too, even though he played in the NBA Finals. The point that I'm trying to make is that all the horses are available on both sides at this particular moment in time. But in the end, it's not going to be the end of the world. It'll be a big day for a Christmas Day game. But at the same time, you know, it's just going to give us some kind of indication of what could potentially be a finals rematch. They know that that's what this is, but at the same time, they don't want to act like it's the be-all, end-all, because whoever loses, they don't want to, if you're Golden State, you don't want to hear somebody saying this legitimizes the fact that your title was fraudulent in a lot of people's eyes. And if you're the Cleveland Cavaliers, you don't want people sitting there looking at you and saying you would have lost to them anyway. So stop talking about the injuries because you would have lost anyway. So they both have their incentive, but they're wise to downplay it to some degree because obviously you don't want to sit there and create headaches for yourself for January through April and May and possibly June.
So you giving the Cavs a shot in this game?
I'm giving them a shot. I still give the edge to the Golden State Warriors because I think Kyrie hasn't been back. Iman Shumpert, they're both just getting back. So there's going to take some time to readjust and to acclimate yourself. But you got some rough riders on the Cleveland Cavaliers. They're not going to just bow down very, very easily. And a lot of those guys, I'm here to tell you for a fact, believe that if all their horses were available to them, they would have won the NBA championship. So they're going to have that chip on their shoulder, and they're not going to go to Golden State and get run over. I can promise you that. But the way Golden State is shooting the basketball on their home turf, with them being at home and Cleveland having to travel across the country on Christmas Day, which, by the way, I think is a damn shame. LeBron James is absolutely right to make a little noise about that. For him to constantly be on the road Christmas Day is entirely unfair. It's entirely unfair. It really is.
Okay, but the biggest chip on any shoulders I've ever seen of any defending champs now rests on the shoulders of the Golden State Warriors because they feel like they got discounted and that they were fraudulent. So I think that, bottom line, I think their motivation is even greater than the Cavs' motivation here. So I do look for Golden State to win a fairly close game, to pull away late, maybe win by 10 or so. But here's my point, Stephen A. Before we leap to all-time great conclusions about the Warriors, now that we've come to Christmas, and we all know that Christmas is sort of where a lot of fans say, oh, the NBA's going. You know, now let's join the parade here now and start watching the NBA. Just for the record, does Golden State have what you would call a signature win yet this year? I'm not sure about that because in Game 2 they won at Houston and they won convincingly. Houston is now, after losing at Orlando last night, 15-15. Then Golden State early on crushed Memphis, beat them by 50 points when Memphis was struggling. Memphis is starting to get its legs underneath it. Then the Clippers. They beat them by 4. You called it on the show. You said you thought it'd be a battle. It'd be a fairly close game. Clippers hung in that game, lost by 4. The Clippers are now 16-13. Are they a great team? No, they're not a great team. Are they a contender? Sure. Think they'll come back together. But my point is that when I look at what happened in the finals, LeBron, without Kevin Love, and then lost Kyrie in overtime of Game 1, they actually came back and won Game 2 at Oracle. So both the Game 1 and 2 went to overtime, and they won the second one. Then they won the third game, and they're up 2-1 with Game 4 in LeBron's house. So that's without Kevin Love and without Kyrie. So to your point, Cleveland should be able to play with these guys. Have they suddenly taken it up to some other never seen level? I don't know. I'm not sure of that yet. So my point is, this should be a closer game. I still think Chip is bigger on Golden State's shoulders here. And at home, I still think that Cleveland can hang in this game and maybe lose by 8 or 10 at the end.
Well, I just don't think that LeBron James is getting blown out. I don't see that happening. And I don't see Steph Curry and Klay Thompson going berserk the way they have been doing against most opponents this year, because I think a guy like Iman Shumpert combined with LeBron James, if you listen, they will make somebody else beat them. Don't get me wrong. Steph Curry and Klay Thompson are the Splash Brothers. They're going to get theirs, but you're not going to steamroll over the Cleveland Cavaliers with LeBron James. I just don't see LeBron James and Cleveland letting that happen. Having said all of that, I can't ignore what I'm seeing from Draymond Green. He has elevated his level of play. He has really come into his own. He is an all-star. When I look at that, I got to give props where props is due. I also got to think about the fact that, again, when you are a marksman, when you are a squad full of marksmen, you've got about 4 or 5 guys shooting better than 38% from three-point range. I can't ignore that. And so when I look at it from that perspective, again, Cleveland can dictate tempo. They can slow the game down. I could even see Cleveland possibly winning this game. I just can't sit there and bet my money on them because they have to travel to Golden State. Golden State's on their home turf and what have you. They're going to be rested. They're not going to be perturbed because they're on the road for Christmas. They ain't LeBron James talking about how his family's in L.A. and he ain't, they don't have any Christmas tradition because he's never home to have a Christmas tradition. All of these different things that are going on, it might add a little sizzle to it. It might make him a bit perturbed where he performs at elite level, but I'm not sure the other guys are going to be just as disciplined and as focused as LeBron James for this particular matchup. They will show up. Cleveland's got heart. They're going to battle. They could win, but if I had to bet my money, I would pick Golden State to win this game by about 6 or 7 points when all is said and done.
I'm with you. And the scariest bottom line to this discussion is you realize Harrison Barnes is still highly doubtful to play in this game.
That's right.
And he's been gone for the last 11 games. Wow.
Yeah.
Wait till he gets back.
He'll be back. He'll be back.
Stephen
Wait till
A,
he gets back.
To your point about LeBron being on the road, following this year's game, LeBron will have played 7 of his 10 Christmas Day games on the road, the most by any player since the NBA-ABA merger. So that's huge.
That's
quit losing the finals.
That's not fair.
You got to do quit losing. That's it.
The Seahawks.
Well, that's not true. That's not the only reason, though. I mean, come on. But he's the draw, Skip. He's the box office attraction. And Michael Jordan had, I know he won 6 out of 6, but damn, he had a lot of Christmas Day games in Chicago, man. He wasn't on the road. I mean, come on, man.
Christmas Day is going to be fun.
They need to do something about that.
Seahawks offensive line coach Tom Cable said Marshawn Lynch, once he returns, one task will be reintegrating his game with a surging Seattle offense. Here's the rest of the quote. Cable saying Lynch's first challenge, of course, to get healthy, then added, we're counting on him to get healthy whenever that is, and then once that happens, it's for him to come back in and be able to adapt to the football team in the way it acts, in the way it's moving right now collectively. That will be his challenge, but right now, his number one thing is getting healthy. Stephen A., do you have a problem with Cable's comments?
Yeah, I do, actually. Let me say this. I recognize, Skip Bayless, that Tom Cable is very well respected within NFL circles. I am not an NFL aficionado, so I'm going to lean on those who cover this league intensively and extensively. I'll lean on their opinions about Tom Cable. I'm sure that he's very well respected. I'm sure that his knowledge of football is not to be questioned. But as a journalist by trade, I'm in a results-oriented business in terms of gauging how valuable somebody is. So with that in mind, I respectfully ask this question. Who the hell does Tom Cable think he is to say such a thing? I mean, who the hell is he? Were you saying this about Marshawn Lynch when he was rushing for 1,200-plus yards per season over the last 4 consecutive years? I mean, I've got to come to the defensive beast mode here. Marshawn Lynch, he didn't deserve this. Why are you saying something like that? Because it implies that it would be a challenge to get him to adjust. It implies that it would be a challenge, to get him to see that this team is going in this direction and you need to come along and get along. Who the hell does Tom Cable think he is? This man was a head coach for 2.5 seasons, or 2 2/3 of a season. Remember, or 2 3/4 of a season. He got there in 2008. The last 12 games for the Oakland Raiders, finished 4-8. His next year, he was 5-11. Year after that, it was 8-8. He has a 17-27 record. He is 10 games under 500. We know he was once the head coach at Idaho. We know that he's been an offensive line coach in Atlanta. We know that he's been in Seattle the last several years. But there has never, in his coaching career, in terms of being a head coach, there was no division title. There was no conference title. There was no Super Bowl title. A matter of fact, when you look at everything according to his names, in terms of accomplishments, other than his win-loss record, when it points to accomplishments, the words, the number 0 is everywhere. As in 0, you have done nothing. Marshawn Lynch is beast mode. Marshawn Lynch has been primarily responsible for you having one of the top 3 rushing attacks in all of the NFL the last 4 to 5 years. And you make a statement like this. Why? Because your boy Rawls came in there and as his replacement and was playing lights out. All of a sudden you got to disrespect and forget what Marshawn Lynch brought to the table. I got a problem with that. And I'm saying that, again, I know that Tom Cable's respected. I know that Pete Carroll values him tremendously. I'm not saying he should be valued because, again, the nuances of the profession as it pertains to him being an assistant head coach and the offensive line coach, I get that. But I think his words can easily be interpreted as somewhat dismissive of Marshawn Lynch, which I find utterly disrespectful. Beast mode deserves better than this from him. He may deserve some criticisms from us as to how he acts during interview, Super Bowl week with the media. I'm just here so I don't get fined 29 times. He might deserve to be criticized because he's not following NFL policy in terms of making himself available and answering legitimate questions. But he could go on Conan O'Brien or someplace else and answer those questions. That might be legitimate. But Marshawn Lynch, the football player, doesn't deserve to hear anything from a damn offensive line coach who never did anything when he was a head coach. He doesn't deserve that. Not from that man. It seems to me that there's a touch, at least a touch, of a lack of appreciation for what this brother brought to the Seattle Seahawks. Remember, Skip, last thing. The Seattle Seahawks and their success was predicated on 2 things: the Legion of Boom and beast mode. Russell Wilson has elevated himself to another level.
Thank you.
I understand that. Mm-hmm. But prior to that, they rode the coattails of beast mode. Your coach should not forget that.
Operative words.
That's all I'm saying.
Prior to that. I have
coach
no
should
problem.
Forget it.
Okay, I have no problem with what Tom Cable says. And trust me on this, he doesn't care what you think of what he said or what I think or Molly thinks of what he said. I will remind you, when Tom Cable was head coach of the Oakland Raiders, he punched out an assistant coach. He is a rough, tough, gruff, no-nonsense guy who does not varnish any of his quotes. This was an unvarnished truth from him. And you talk about results-oriented business that we're in, that we judge people by. Russell Wilson's played the 5 straight greatest games of quarterback that maybe anybody's ever played. Yeah. 19 touchdowns to 0 interceptions. He and he alone turned around the Seattle season. You should be down on your knees thanking Russell Wilson for saving your potential Super Bowl pick, because they have won all 5 games without Marshawn Lynch. And I think it's just a statement of fact that now Marshawn is going to have to find his place in a script that got completely flipped. This is no longer Marshawn's offense. It used to be his offense. This team used to go as he went, and obviously the Legion of Boom went. It was a run the ball and play defense, low-scoring kind of team. Now it's an explosive offensive team built around about a 5', 11-inch quarterback who is throwing wicked passes from the pocket. From the pocket. I've never seen anything like this. So, to me, as Marshawn is getting up there in years, I think Cable's just stating a fact. He's going to have to find a new place in an attack that is now built around the quarterback instead of the running back. And if hypothetically, next Sunday was the Super Bowl game that we've all talked about, the last play of that Super Bowl, if hypothetically in a vacuum you put it now in the present context, you would want that last play in the hands of the quarterback and not the running back, because Russell Wilson has now earned the right on whatever it was in short, whatever it was at third or fourth, I can't remember, on the interception play by Malcolm Butler. He has earned the right to have the ball in his hands and not in Beast Mode's hands. That's how great he has been, and that's all that Cable's saying is, got to find a new role for you, a new place for you, a new fit for you and your aura and your ego, if you will. Your pride is going to have to fit in a different role. That's what he's saying, and that's the truth.
Well, see, the point is that your truth and Cable's truth, with Nolly nodding her head in agreement and affirmation, is irrelevant to
Molly
the
just
point.
Got called out.
The point is no, she did not get called out.
Because I just got to say
all
one
of
thing.
y'all are getting called out.
I was actually with you, because when in the quote he said he needs to adapt to this football team the way it acts, I do think it's a little bit of a shot at Marshawn Lynch and unnecessary the way he put it. I get what Skip's saying in terms of it's Russell Wilson now, the best QBR 5 straight games, but the way he put it, but I mean now we know his character, that he doesn't mince words, he doesn't care. So I was actually with you.
But that's the point. Well, thank you. That's the point.
She's always with you.
If this were a player.
Can't win.
Well, listen. If this were a player, we wouldn't be concerned about their truth. We would be concerned about how they presented themselves. So why doesn't the same get attached to the coach? Who wouldn't disagree? Who would disagree with what you just said, Skip? Who doesn't know that this is Russell Wilson's team now? The way that he's been balling and the level that he's been balling on. We all know it. Tom Cable knows it. Why did you need to say that? If a player had said that, we literally would be up here saying, yeah, it's politically incorrect. I mean, he's got to know better, because how is this person supposed to take this? And how is that person supposed to take that?
That's a
we
player.
do that to players all the time. Hold on. We do that to players all the time.
Okay.
It's the offensive line coach. Give me the coach. This isn't Pete Carroll. This is offense. Tom Cable, be quiet.
Yeah.
Hold on. When have we ever cared what an offensive line coach has to say? When?
I care what he says, because he might be the best in the business. I care about what he says.
That's not the point. That's not the point. The point is, who do you think you are opening your mouth to be so aloof and dismissive towards Marshawn Lynch? That's the point.
I don't think it's dismissive.
Because if this were a player, I think he was. If this were a player, we would be calling him out, because we don't just hold them accountable for their job description. We want to attach all these responsibilities to 21, 22, 23-year-olds and claim they should know better. But a grown man like Tom Cable, who was once a head coach in this game, is going to sit up there and just throw that out there like that? I think that's wrong. I'm not saying that he's wrong with what he was saying. I'm saying he was wrong to say it. That is not his job. Coach the damn offensive line. Mind your business, leave it to Pete Carroll. Nobody want to hear from Tom Cable. That's all I'm trying to say. No disrespect to him. He's a grown man, and I respect the job that he's done. I'm saying that you cross the line when you open your mouth chirping like that. That's Pete Carroll's job. Okay. You coach the offensive line.
Maybe it's
you had
not.
your chance to be a head coach, and you flunked.
Maybe Pete
Pete
Carroll couldn't get away with saying that. Maybe he privately liked it that Cable said it, because it needed to get said for when Marshawn comes back.
And you're giving me maybes. And I'm giving you fact from the perspective. He had no business doing that, because if it were a player, we would be all over them. So why are you on offensive line coach? Don't give me no maybe about what Pete Carroll. Maybe he did it. Maybe he didn't. Tom Cable's man enough. If you man enough to punch somebody in the face when you are a coach, you man enough to know when to shut the hell up. You don't be talking about beast mode like that after all he's done for you for the last 5 years. You don't do that to him. That's not right.
I liked it.
We have to go to break, but I have to say one thing. Maybe it's a Bill Parcells approach. Break him down, build him up. Maybe he's trying to motivate the guy. I agree that it shouldn't have been said the way it was, but we don't know. All right.
All these maybes. We know he had no business doing it.
We don't know that. Next question.
Yes, we do. Yes, we do.
Remember that RG3 guy? Not much has been heard or seen from Robert Griffin III this season. It's added up to the best case scenario for Washington, no drama. Redskins tackle Trent Williams sees a difference, telling our John Keim this: we're reaping the benefits of not having a circus around every day. Just in that sense, it's help. They nipped it in the bud. So-and-so, it's your team. That gives us direction, and you know which way we're going, and you know who we're going with. It takes out a lot of the uncertainty. Roberts handled it 10 times better than anyone could have imagined. He's never been a distraction one bit. One person describing Cousins and Griffin's relationship as awkward, though that's been the case for a few years. I mean, I'm assuming it would be, as it's never been ideal. Stephen A., how has RG3 handled this season?
I think he's been sensational. I think that RG3 certainly wasn't perfect at the beginning. He did come across as somebody who was feeling himself just a little bit, but the attacks against his character were extreme and completely unnecessary. It's just that simple. You would have, I mean, the way that folks came at him were completely unnecessary. And now that he's sitting out, because let's face it, they'll have to pay him over $16 million if he were to play this year and get hurt. They certainly were not going to risk that. I don't know why they didn't just cut him at the beginning of this season and let him be done and be gone and free to go somewhere else then. I don't know the nuances of what surrounded that decision, but that's just my feeling on it. In the end, though, he couldn't have been a better citizen. He's kept his mouth shut. He's laid low. Hasn't said anything, hasn't drawn any attention to himself. Of course, it's going to be a bit awkward with him and Kirk Cousins, because clearly Kirk Cousins is the guy that Jay Gruden wants to be his man, and the Washington Redskins have sided with him, and RG3's time in Washington is soon coming to an end, because it's clear that he's not going to be back after this season as far as I'm concerned. Well, but with all of that being said, I think what happens also is this. It's important to point out that there's no reason for RG3 to say anything. Skip, I got a lot of loved ones in D.C., actually a few loved ones in D.C., not a lot. But I will tell you this. Everybody that I know in D.C., they are of the mentality that RG3 was sabotaged, that he was never treated fairly by Jay Gruden, that Jay Gruden didn't really want him, that Jay Gruden was excessive with his criticism, meticulously dissecting what RG3 wasn't supposed to be doing, and it rubs them the wrong way. Even though they're Redskins fans, they have a very difficult time rooting for the Redskins, because to root for the Redskins is to root for Jay Gruden, and they don't want to root for him. And to a lesser degree, Kirk Cousins. They know it's not his fault. He's been class personified, but he's had the benefit of being the favorite stepson per se, of Jay Gruden than RG3. And as a result, that has sort of sullied and minimized their support, or dissipated rather their support for the Washington Redskins, because to root for them is to root for Jay Gruden. And even though they're diehard Redskins fans, they're a bit torn. And I would not be surprised at all if the feelings of those few replicated or emulated that of a lot of Redskins fans in the nation's capital right now.
I agree with you, and however big that faction is, I am a part of it, as you well know. Big RG3 fan, remain in his corner. I want to remind people once again, he was the offensive rookie of the year in the National Football League, and he carried a Redskins team nobody thought had a chance to the division title that year. How quickly we forget. I also want to applaud Robert for having the guts, because I think it took some guts and some character on his part to stay completely off social media, to go along with, I assume, the team's request, no more interviews. He will not make himself available for any interviews anywhere, anytime, when he's at the Redskins facility or away from the facility, and I applaud that. I think he was kept around by the owner, who I think, if I'm right about this, still loves him. He wanted, obviously, Dan Snyder loves himself some RG3, wanted to keep Robert around because we didn't know how Kirk Cousins was going to do, and our hats are off to him. You've said it several times. He's really played well this year, way better than I thought he could. I just can't root for him. And as much as I respect Mike Shanahan, I got to give Mike Shanahan some props here because, remember, Mike Shanahan originally wanted to draft only Kirk Cousins that year, was overruled by the owner, maybe the GM. They traded up and spent king's ransom to get Robert with the second pick in that draft, and they still down the line took Kirk Cousins. And I thought that was very unfair to Robert to have another rookie who had been a premier starting quarterback in college football, very successful at Michigan State.
Big Ten.
Yeah, and to have both of them vying not only for the job but for the affection of the fandom. It just splits people. It just wasn't fair to Robert and whatever. Then Jay Gruden, I completely agree. He undermined him publicly. I don't care what anybody says. If you want to go to sabotage, that's fine. But it just made me sick, which is why I told you when we picked the game in our earlier block, I just can't. It's hard for me to root for Jay Gruden after what he did to Robert publicly. He wanted Kirk. He got Kirk. And so far, so good. But I got to tell you, a whole lot is riding on Saturday night at Philadelphia. For Jay Gruden,
I agree.
If the bottom falls out, and if they go to Jerry World and lose the last game, I don't know. We'll see how that plays out in D.C. and with the owner.
I agree.
So it's not over yet.
And the quarterback.
Yeah, a lot on him, too, for the contract.
Yeah, and the quarterback.
And the quarterback. I mean, you're on the radio in D.C., and they ask you a question about wanting to stay, and you talking about, well, that depends. Let's see how much I'm wanted.
Maybe
clearly
not.
are feeling yourself a little bit. It's an astute, it was an adroit move on his part from the perspective that, you know what, if he performs well, he could get paid. But Jay Gruden, you go into Philly and you lose against the Cowboys to end the season, and you on the outside looking in at 7-9.
Yep.
That's a bad look. That's a bad look.
And I'm going to say it one last time. I want to see Robert get another shot, a fair, clean shot somewhere else, maybe with my Dallas Cowboys. I don't know. But I want to see him have one more shot, fair shot in this league.
The right situation. We all want that. He's just 25, too.
Yep.
You know, he's got a decade. Sorry, Stephen.
I would say this. Hold on, Molly. I would say this. I would prefer to see RG3 in Dallas than Johnny Manziel.
Okay. Fair enough.
I'm with you.
That'd be me.
I second that one, Stephen A.
I would prefer that.
You can feel a buzz in the air. You know something special is about to occur.
Clemson, Oklahoma, followed by Alabama, Michigan State. The College Football Playoff, 3 Eastern, New Year's Eve, on ESPN and ESPN Radio.
I see a calmness about him, and I think it's something that a lot of players don't understand. I think the fans, it's very hard for the fans to really understand what I'm saying, because most players don't get it. There's a serious calmness about him, which is extremely deadly, right? Because he's not up, he's not down, he's not contemplating what just happened before or worrying about what's to come next. He's just there. And when a player has the skills and has trained himself to have the skills to be able to shoot, dribble, left, right, etc., and then you mix that with this calmness and poise, then you have a serious, serious problem on your hands. And so when I watch him play, that's what I see.
He is a serious problem for a lot of people. For much more with Kobe and also conversations with LeBron, Curry, and Durant, please tune into NBA Countdown. That's on ABC tomorrow at 2 p.m. Eastern, Christmas Day. Stephen A., what do you make of Kobe's comments on Steph?
Frightening. That's the word that comes to my mind, because we all know what an assassin Kobe Bryant has been throughout his career as one of the prolific scorers the game has ever seen. And so to take it from there and then to see him talk about Steph Curry in this manner, who stands here today and just what is it, his seventh year, 8th year in the league. He stands here as the reigning defending NBA champion and league MVP. And you have one of the top 10 players of all time, one of the most prolific scorers in NBA history, looking into a camera and calmly telling you how much of an assassin this guy is, because he doesn't get high, he doesn't get low. He just goes about his business in a very methodical, matter-of-fact way with no conscience whatsoever. You just can't, it's scary, because that means he's immune to the pressure. It doesn't faze him. And to have all the requisite weapons available in his arsenal, not to mention the poise to go along with it, when one of the greatest players of all time is describing you in that fashion, it makes you sit back and say, okay, who's coming his way? Is it really, really, really going to matter? We keep talking about him against LeBron James and a possible berth in the NBA Finals. My point is that do you not sit back, Skip, and say, Greg Popovich, Kawhi Leonard, do you hear this? Chris Paul, Blake Griffin, Doc Rivers, do you hear this? Russell Westbrook, do you hear this? This is what Kobe is talking about when it comes to this kid. And so I just find myself, this year is going to tell us so much about Steph Curry. Because, Skip, I'm here to tell you right now, if the Golden State Warriors are led to another championship by Steph Curry this year, I might be willing to go on a record and tell you this brother might win more championships than Michael Jordan. Because the game has changed in such a way that it facilitates play for guards. And everybody's coming at him because he's having a career year that follows up a championship in an MVP season. So I am of the belief that no one will ever be more motivated to come after Steph Curry and the Golden State Warriors than they are at this point in time. And if they still can't knock him off, with Russell Westbrook in his prime, with Kevin Durant in his prime, with Chris Paul and Blake Griffin and those boys supposedly in their prime, with Kawhi Leonard on the come-up, already having a championship on his resume in his prime, with LeBron James, still great, still one of the greatest ever, but obviously age, father time, mileage, he is what he is, and there's really nowhere for him to go but down a little bit. If you can't knock Steph Curry off this year, who in the foreseeable future is going to be able to do it? Popovich ain't going to have Duncan Ginobili and Tony Parker to pair with Kawhi Leonard, even though Kawhi Leonard and LaMarcus Aldridge are great pieces to have.
Yep.
The Clippers, to me, their window to me is closing. And then when I look at Russell Westbrook and Kevin Durant, well, likelihood they'll be together, they'll stay together, but we all know it's possible they may not be.
May not.
So who's going? Don't tell me James Harden in Houston. I don't want to hear that. So who is it that's going to knock down? That's no disrespect to James Harden because he's a stud superstar. I'm just talking about the team that is the Houston Rockets. So who is it? If you don't knock off Steph Curry this year, when are you going to do it? I don't know.
Maybe it's Ben Simmons, right? Maybe we have to go that far into the future.
Well, that's down. We got to look for it. But let me tell you something. Ben Simmons, he's the number one overall pick. I ain't going to talk about that. That's number one overall pick.
Okay, now
ain't even nothing to talk about with that.
Right. I don't think it's even gutsy of me to say there's no way Steph is going to win 7 championships before he's finished. And I must defend the great Michael Jordan on one key point. Steph has already lost out to Michael because Michael went 6 for 6 in NBA Finals with 6 MVPs. And I remind you, Andre Iguodala won MVP of the last Finals. And look, back to Kobe. It's just stunning insight, as usual, from Kobe Bryant. We appreciate that very much. I'm with him. It opened my eyes to Steph. Look, Steph has supremely confident calmness, to the point it's arrogant confidence. That's what I see, and I mean that in the most positive way. Steph is arrogantly calm because he knows he is so good that he can do just about anything he wants at any moment. But that's the current Steph. You pointed out, this is his 7th year in the NBA. I remind you, those first 3 games of the finals last year, I didn't see this Steph. He was struggling, dare I say, against Matthew Dellavedova. He was struggling, and I know you joked about it, but Delly was bothering him a little bit. He was just pesky, gnat-like, just irritating Steph. Steph wasn't great in those first 3 games.
Until you opened your mouth about Dellavedova and what Steph Curry do to him after
still,
that.
Matthew, he ran out of gas. He wound up with IVs in the hospital because he was spending so much energy trying to chase Steph Curry. And for a while, he did okay. My point is, Steph wasn't superhuman in those first 3 games. The second game, he shot 2 for 15 from 3. He wasn't this Steph. And all of a sudden, the reigning MVP is the leading candidate for most improved player in the NBA. That's the truth. It's the truth.
Interesting.
He's way better than he was last year. I don't know exactly why, but it's just the truth because Iguodala won MVP and Steph shot 38.5% for the finals from 3, which is still really good, but it's not great. It's not what he's now 44.8 for the season. It's absurd what he's doing now. And he's taken it up a whole nother level. So I give you that. But when you start talking about 7 championships for a 6'3" kind of willowy guard, I just don't know. That's just hard for me to swallow.
Well, I don't blame you. It's hard. It should be hard for any of us to swallow. But I specifically brought into play the rules changes and how it facilitates guard play. If you have guard play and you're not able to get physical with him because you'll get teed up or you'll get ejected, okay, then that means this brother's going to be able to shoot. And we all know he's the greatest shooter we've ever seen. Yeah. When you combine that with the fact that it's difficult to impede him, and you look at the way the rules are applied, and you're thinking about their youth. They got to re-sign Harrison Barnes.
They do.
But you got Steph locked up. You're going to keep him locked up.
Clay.
You got Klay Thompson, who you made the case maybe is a top 2 shooter in the game. Mm-hmm. Then you got Draymond Green, who is signed.
I'm with you.
I mean, it's there. It's there. Who knows?
Okay. Who knows? I got to
sit back and say you
could be right.
This year is going to tell us a lot about how far Golden State can do. Mm-hmm. They've got nobody that matters over 27 years old.
Yeah. I know that Julio is leading right now. I think in receivers wise or whatever. Roddy, I think he's their 5th receiver coming in behind the tight ends and running backs. And I think he had 1 reception for a touchdown this year. So we're going to try to hold him out as much as we can.
All right, so that was Josh Norman Wednesday firing back at Roddy White after White called him out for his toughness. Quote, I think he's their 5th best wide receiver behind the tight end and running backs. I think he has 1 reception for a touchdown this year. Stephen A., do you give the Falcons any shot against the Panthers?
Well, I give them a shot from the perspective that they're on their home turf. They have very little to lose as far as I'm concerned. They fell off the map. I guess they still have an outside shot at a playoff berth, so I guess they got something to lose. But ultimately, I think the ultimate motivation is the fact that they got stomped just a couple of weeks ago in Carolina, 38-0. They were down on the sidelines taking pictures during or after the game, just having a ball at the Atlanta Falcons' expense. And in a sport as physical and violent as football, you know that you can go out there and make a difference with your physicality alone. Now, obviously, the Carolina Panthers are going to have something to say to that. I think they'll respond to the challenge. But nevertheless, it's one of those situations where I think that Carolina is clearly the superior team, but Atlanta can hurt you. They do have some weapons. Matt Ryan, Julio Jones alone should be able to do some things for you. We'll see what transpires. And since Roddy White took the liberty of opening his mouth, I suspect that he'll be ready to perform. I suspect that he'll be in a situation where he can obviously step up there and find himself in a situation where he can make a difference. I don't know whether he'll be able to or not because he's not the Roddy White that we saw from 2007 to 2012, those 6 seasons when he was a 1,000-plus yard receiver and an all-pro. We know when younger and healthier, he could play. We're not trying to disrespect Roddy White here. We're simply pointing out that he felt the need to open his mouth about something that was totally unnecessary for him to speak on. And since he needed to do that, he's going to have to back it up. And I think Josh Norman and those boys are going to be there to have something to say about that. And if Josh Norman tried to get in Odell Beckham Jr.'s head, you know he's going to try to get in Roddy White's head as well, assuming he even considers Roddy White irrelevant at this particular moment in time. So it's going to be interesting. I think it'll be far more competitive than it was 2 weeks ago, but I still think that Carolina prevails. It'll be in Atlanta. It'll be tough. Those Falcons fans will show up trying to ruin Carolina's season, but they'll have mixed emotions as a fan base as well, because even though they're rooting for the Falcons, they love themselves some Cam Newton. They do. And he will be in the house.
Agree. They're going to have really mixed emotions.
So it'll be real interesting to see what happens.
I agree. I told you the other day when we talked about Roddy White, I respected his perspective on this. I don't love it. I'm with you on this. I don't love it that he said it on the eve of this game or the week before this game. I do think he put Josh Norman in a perspective that I will take to the bank, talking about how he's more of a zone corner than a straight shutdown man-to-man corner, even though Josh disputed that also to a degree yesterday.
He did.
Okay, fine. Yeah. I got all that. But Roddy White has earned the right to say what he said. He just put his team in a tougher spot than they were even going to be in to start with. I'm going to remind you, in the last 2 games against Carolina, the Atlanta Falcons lost by a combined score of 72-3. So to me, I'm a little surprised that Carolina is only a 7-point favorite. I think it'll get messier than that. That's just me, because I'm going to remind you, Carolina is running away with turnover margin in the NFL. They're plus 19. They have 35 takeaways. That's 6 more than anybody else has. I promise you they will take the ball away from Matt Ryan and company 2 or 3 times. And I'm also going to remind you, Atlanta is last in the NFL in sacks. So Cam Newton will throw a party. I just think if he wants to stand back there and look for Ted Ginn all day long, he'll have all day long to find him.
One of the things that Charles Johnson had mentioned when he was on NFL Countdown, Sunday's NFL Countdown, skip a few weeks back, he pointed out how Josh Norman is actually better in man coverage than he is in zone. And when I spoke to Josh Norman about that, he reiterated that point, because he says sometimes he's a bit more confused with zones as opposed to man-to-man. He actually prefers man-to-man, and he obviously plays it enough. So this notion that he can't man up and defend somebody is a misnomer. Now, obviously, people are going to look at Odell Beckham Jr. and say, well, Odell Beckham Jr. dropped 1 touchdown pass, caught another. Well, how many Odell Beckham Jr.'s exist? How many guys do you know? You got to remember, you got physical receivers, you got guys with great hands, but they don't have the lightning speed that Odell Beckham Jr. has.
I agree. Josh was bailing on Odell in the few times that I saw him in straight man coverage, but whatever.
I know that Julio is leading right now, I think in receivers-wise or whatever. Roddy, I think he's their 5th receiver coming in behind the tight ends and running backs. And I think he had 1 reception for a touchdown this year. So we're going to try to hold him out as much as we can.
All right, so that was Josh Norman Wednesday firing back at Roddy White after White called him out for his toughness. Quote, I think he's their 5th best wide receiver behind the tight end and running backs. I think he has 1 reception.
Hi, I'm meteorologist Jim Cantori, and here's something everyone should know. If you're driving and you can't see clearly for 1 second at 60 miles per hour, you can't see clearly for 88 feet. And a lot can happen in 88 feet. That's why Bosch created the Icon with ClearMax 365. It's a rubber technology for longer lasting performance, not found on any other wiper blade. Because like you, Bosch cares about what's ahead.
Houston has an offense that's among the most explosive in the nation. Florida State's defense ranks 5th in points allowed. They go head-to-head in the Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl, 11:30 Eastern New Year's Eve on ESPN Radio.